Dr. Arlene Padiranga, Dr. Felicito Dalaguete, Mr. Arturo Valdez, my fellow speakers, colleagues in the profession, students, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good morning. Today we will be talking about the voyages beyond the shores, maritime movements in the age of globalization, the current issues and trends and challenges that concerns various maritime movements from the perspective of a ship manager. Globalization can be defined in many ways, but a simple meaning of globalization is it describes the way countries and people interact. Now, globalization can be classified in three ways. These are the political, social, and economic globalization. Among the three, we in the maritime industry are most interested in and an important part of the economic globalization. Economic globalization refers to the interconnectedness of economies through trade and exchange of resources. Effectively, therefore, therefore, no national economy really operates in isolation, which means that national economies influence each other. These are clearly evidenced by the global recession from 2007 onwards, which we will touch later. The maritime industry, where we are in general, and shipping in particular, is fundamental to international trade. It is the backbone of world trade. It is the lifeblood of our global economy. It is cheap and clean form of transportation where 90% of the global trade are carried by ships. No other mode of transportation, whether it be by sea, by air or by land, can match the transportation by sea, both in volume and in cost. Now we will be looking at the trends, issues, and challenges of the maritime industry. Each year brings new challenging opportunities in the maritime industry. One has to pay attention to industry development and current events in order to allow us to make relevant changes in our operation to stay abreast of the competition. It is critical that our organization remains aware of shipping trends so we can anticipate the emerging issues and strategize in the short and long term to address them. If you don't, you may find yourself, your profitability adversely affected. Depending on what sector of the maritime industry you are in or we are in, there are a lot of issues, trends, and challenges facing our maritime industry, and this forum is not really enough to discuss them all. So, I shall be touching on some few important issues and trends and challenges facing the maritime industry as a whole, and how it will affect the future of shipping industry from the viewpoint of a ship manager as ship owner's representative. But before that, let me give you an insight of the shipping market trends in the last 10 years after the shipping boom of 2003 and 2008. The 5-year period before 2003 and 2008 was the golden age of the shipping industry. If you will notice, those years, 2003 and 2008, were the years where the world held the Summer Olympics in Athens, Greece, which is 2004. And next, the Beijing Olympics, which was held in 2008. Because of this industrialization of China and Athens, because of their economic activities, freight rates were high during that time. The demand was high, the demand for ships. And naturally, the industry and the rest of the shipping sectors were awash with cash. Banks were eagerly lending huge amounts at very competitive rates to ship owners, who went on adding more ships aggressively, enlarging their fleet. There was an insatiable demand for all kinds of goods and materials, largely fueled by the spectacular growth in developing countries like Brazil, Russia, India, and in particular China. the shipping industry has enjoyed one of the most prosperous times in its history. As a response to the huge appetite for dry bulk commodities, especially from China, ship owners went on an ordering spree in 2006, 2007, and 2008. 4 years on, large chunk of these orders have been delivered. Since the 2008 Beijing Olympics, the Capesize fleet has grown by 95%. In the same way, container ship orders hit a record-breaking level in July 2008 with a combined volume of 7 billion TEUs in new orders, which was 60% of the total capacity of the entire industry at that time. Especially with China exporting mass quantities of new products, shipbuilders were racing to produce more vessels. Then, as we know, on 15 September 2008, came the collapse and filing for bankruptcy of the Lehman Brothers. This shocked the banking industry and led to the global financial and economic recession of 2008, which has resulted in a sharp downturn of our economy, of the world economy, in the shipping market. This has directly led to a rapid fall in demand for transport and related services. So you see, the shipping crisis, which started late 2008 and onwards, was due mainly to the three factors. Number one, oversupply of tonnages ordered in the pre-crisis years. Number two, widespread mistrust among banks and the subsequent withdrawal from their financial letter of credit, where the cargo flow came to an abrupt halt with an immediate impact on shipping. And number three, slowdown of world economy, particularly the Chinese economy. When supply exceeded demand on a large scale, freight rates and values of the vessels hit the lowest levels. It created an unbearable financial distress. The global shipping industry couldn't absorb the cost of the huge volume of new ships, which was ordered during the last decade and started to break down. When everything was going great during the boom session of 2003 and up to 2008, the 2008 crisis was a wake-up call. The shipping industry found itself in the center of a global financial crisis, while the supply of ships already exceeded the demand for ships. During that time, many ships sailed half empty and at most on economical speed to save on fuel if they are sailing at all. Shipping companies were pulling more and more ships out of circulation due to lack of demand and placing them at anchor indefinitely. Perhaps you can remember those times. Experts estimate that 1/4 of all ships used to transport raw materials in the Pacific became idle. The classic approach of decreasing the fleet by scrapping old tonnage and postponing new buildings might work, but this time the current fleet is younger, and on the other hand, there are several shipping companies that are trying to exploit lower prices to purchase newer and bigger ships. Now we are past the halfway point in 2018. We can see a little bit of improvement. Here are some of the trends and issues and challenges and what they could mean to shipping for the remainder of this year. Going into the beginning of this year, 2018, sentiments was positive towards container shipping and very positive towards bulk and product tankers. However, half year on, and we are at the end of the quarter of the year, bulk shipping is back to losses. Dry bulk rates are uninspiring. Product tankers rates are even worse than in 2017. Crude tanker rates are much weaker than predicted. And the liquefied petroleum gas shipping rates remain well below break-even. Or at least, the freight rate has not come up to a desired level where the industry can recover from the years of loss. As we reach the last quarter of this year, expectations are high as freight and charter rates are getting better, at least better than before, but not enough to recover the losses sustained by the ship owners. Weak freight rates and charter hires are hurting the shipping industry because Cost-cutting to compensate for falling profitability is affecting service levels. The low spot rates are encouraging carrier customers to shop around and to appoint dishonor contract. The consequence of this to ship owners is the problem of positive cash flow. Without positive cash flow, profitability falls. Cost-cutting will result and service level will be affected. Crude oil at present is hovering or nearing to around $80 per barrel. Perhaps you are aware of how our fuel keeps on rising. In fact, this week there is a big rise. This $80 per barrel is the highest since 2014. The increase in bunker prices this 2018 has been significantly higher than what was expected. Ship and bunker data indicates that the average price of key grade IFO 380, which is the IFO grade used by ships, at major ports went up to $461 per metric ton from $323 metric tons recorded last May, which is up by 44%. As a result, major box carriers, the container ships, introduce emergency bunker surcharges. This is what also the airlines industry is doing, di ba? They are introducing the surcharges. However, in shipping, carriers like the container ships announced that they may implement surcharges. However, container lines face a steep challenge in recouping emergency bunker fuel and peak season surges because contractual agreements with shippers limits the shippers' exposure and competition among carriers, give shippers leverage in rejecting any emergency fees. Alternatively, shippers can threaten to take their cargo to another carrier and take action if they don't get their way. Higher bunker prices are a negative for owners with ships employed on the spot and even on liner services. The prevailing situation in bunker and tanker trades due to the prolonged period of low time charter rates are also a negative to all ship owners. The consequence of this high crude bunker prices mean higher ship operating cost. Bunker oil is without a doubt the largest operating expenses, and therefore carriers will feel the pain as the price are now in the process of moving away from their previous low level. Environmental regulations. This is mentioned in part by the former, one of our speaker, Dr. Siringan. The International Ballast Water Management Convention. The International Convention for the Control and Management of Ships' Ballast Water and Sediments, or what we call the Ballast Water Management Convention, entered into force in 8 September 2017. Meets the U.S. Coast Guard standard requirement. And also, of course, the state of California, which always have a stringent requirement than the U.S. Coast Guard themselves, has also their own ballast water management treatment standards. You know, the consequence of this to ship owners is that because of installing an IMO-approved, U.S. Coast Guard-approved, and California State-approved ballast water treatment system will cost the owners, by the way, it is a capital cost, will cost the owners in the region of $500,000 to up to $2 billion. Electrolysis, there is the filtration system, there is the addition of chemicals or combined. The size of the equipment, it will all depend on the type of the equipment, the size of the equipment, vis-a-vis to the size of the vessel, ballast water tank, and the trading route of the vessel. If the vessel is not trading in the United States, which I doubt, they have to comply only with the IMO standard. However, if you trade to the United States, and most ships are trading to the United States, you have to comply with the three standards, especially when you are also going to state of California. The IMO standard, the U.S. Coast Guard standard, in the state of California standard. Up to this moment, there are only 7 ballast water treatment system approved by the U.S. Coast Guard. Only 7. Others are getting in line to be approved. From 1st January, now, other than the ballast water treatment system, another concern is the 2020 worldwide sulfur cap, which is also again connected to what Dr. Siringan said a while ago about the environment. Due to the continuous growth of shipping fleet, and despite being the most energy efficient mode of mass transportation, shipping impacts climate change as a result of its scale and its reliance for propulsion on bunkers, a heavy fuel oil that is a residual byproduct of refineries. While we are using on land, while we are using the gasoline and the diesel, what the vessel is using are bunkers. These are residual product, byproduct of refineries. Kung makikita niyo yung bunker, pag malamig, parang ano na yan? Parang putik na. Now, only through heating, kaya yan nag-liquefy at nagagamit. This is a dirty form of fuel. Now, from 1st January 2020, in accordance with MARPOL Annex 6, the sulfur content of fuel oil used on board commercial ships trading outside the sulfur emission control areas must not exceed 0.5% in volume. What we are using now worldwide for ships is 3.5. Now, they will now be decreasing this to 0.5% in weight. The 0.5 sulfur limit is a significant reduction from the current global limit of 3.5, which has been in place since 2012. Significantly, the International Maritime Organization implementation of the sulfur cap on marine fuel of 0.5% down from the 3.5 will raise global shipping fuel costs dramatically. Now, also, the 0.5 requirement will be strictly enforced globally by the Port State Control. The consequences of this to ship owners are twofold. Number one, this is another capital cost. If the ship owners will elect to use equivalent compliance mechanism in accordance with Regulation 4 of MARPOL 6, this is by the use of a scrubber system. And if they will not opt in using that scrubber system, then this will be an additional operational cost by the use of the low sulfur fuel oil having a 0.5% by weight. This, because of the sudden implementation by 2020, it is expected that the bunker industry may not produce a fuel immediately with 0.5, and therefore there will be a scarce supply. Having a scarce supply will make the price of fuel goes up. Next is the maritime piracy. As you know, the threat of maritime piracy has bothered the industry in the past few years, especially in piracy-affected regions. The 10 top most piracy-affected areas are the Malacca Strait, Gulf of Aden, Benin, South China Sea, Nigeria, Arabian Sea, Somalia, Indonesia, Gulf of Guinea, and the Indian Ocean. Maritime piracy is a global issue. As you are aware recently, there are, 7 or 10 Filipinos and a few Eastern management officers who were kidnapped in Nigeria. The piracy still persists during this time, and the consequences of this to ship owners is additional operating costs in providing armed security guards during the ship's passage through pirate-infested waters as mentioned. The cost of armed guards and additional premiums may reach in the region of $15,000 to $30,000 for a single trip across the Indian Ocean or for calling the Gulf of Aden West African ports. Seafarers training, education, and certification. It has always been said that all things equal, the ship is only as good as the crew running it. It was also said that to improve the ship performance, the crew performance must first be improved. It is critical, therefore, that crew performance must be improved through enhancement of seafarers' education and training, able to follow orders, manage risk, solve problems, and must be psychologically and emotionally happy to ensure a safe, secure, clean, and efficient operations of the ship for the safety of life at sea. Amongst the four pillars of international maritime law, the STCW Convention 1978 sets the minimum qualification and standards for masters, officers, and watch personnel on seagoing ship. Now, beginning 2006, as we are all aware in the industry, from the time when EMSA first carried out their inspection and audit of the Philippines, up to this point in time, the Philippines has found itself in the crosshairs of the EMSA. After 6 inspections beginning 2006, there are still a lot of non-conformities and findings that need to be rectified and closed. EMSA is scheduled to inspect the Philippine compliance this October 2018. And I wouldn't be dwelling too much on this issue because I understand that this topic will be discussed later in more detail by the next succeeding speaker. Nonetheless, I would just like to simply highlight one of the concerns of the ship managers and owners on Filipino seafarers compared to other nationalities, especially in comparison from the Indian seafarers. Our officers, as what Mr. Valdez and Dr. Padiranga said, our seafarers are quite poor in soft skills like leadership, management, critical thinking, and commercial matters and regulatory knowledge. Every now and then, Filipino officers are being compared to Indian officers in the way how port state control flag administration and how commercial decisions are handled. You know, looking at the CMO 67 by Joint Ched and Marina, there are the minimum required curriculum for the BS Marine, BS Mari, that the higher maritime education institutions should follow. However, as I mentioned a while ago, I think maritime higher education institution should make a study, should consult with the industry, especially the captains, the chief engineers, to still, other than what is required under the CMO 67, they have to make a study on what other competencies are required by our officers. And having gathered all the competencies that are required, then we have to establish the knowledge, understanding, and proficiency that are required to have that competency instilled in our student. So this, as I said, the CMO 67 mandates the minimum requirement, but we can always go higher than that. So we have to make a study on what more competencies that are required, which concentrating not on technical subject, but concentrating on the soft skills of the student. Now, I will not be dwelling much on consolidation because we are running out of time. So we will go, what does the future hold on shipping? Let me quote what Mr. Remy Erickson, Group President and Chief Executive Officers of DNB GL discussed some of the coming developments in the maritime world in his speech at the Danish Maritime Technology Conference. And he said, obviously, the future is notoriously hard to predict and a straight answer is far from easy to give. What I do know is that shipping will continue to play an important part of the world economy for decades to come. But the industry itself, the vessels, the infrastructure, and the system that connect them could change substantially. We can of course not ignore the current market situation and the structural effect this might have. But today is not an arena for fear and pessimism. This is an arena for curiosity, innovation, and opportunity. Amidst all this maritime industry, amidst all this, of course, all these challenges and issues and trends, the maritime industry in general and the shipping in particular will remain as the backbone of international trade and a key engine driving globalization and competitiveness. Eyeing the history of shipping, it shows that the industry is always involved in business cycles that are characterized by the cyclical bust and booms. It has been said that one good year for shipping is equivalent to 7 bad years. Currently, shipping is enduring one of her longest business cycles. That was not expected that this long. But again, when everything fell down to its lowest, there is no other way up. There is no other way but to go up. Thank you very much.